The days are getting hotter, even here in Portland, which means it's time for iced coffee. After such a long break from the practice, we often find ourselves scrambling to remember how we even made the stuff in the first place. We're certainly not looking to repeat the old hot pot of coffee poured over a container of ice. It's a rite of passage, but it's behind us. Today I'll be sharing our 3 favorite ways to make iced coffee, so you can start your summer right whether you want to plan ahead or need coffee on short notice. First, let's do an iced espresso. Our jobs here at Clive revolve around helping people take their first steps into home espresso, so it only felt right to start with a simple iced espresso recipe. One of the best things about espresso is that it's such a quick way to make super concentrated coffee. Aside from your espresso setup, all you'll need is some good coffee, a few ice cubes, and a glass. We're going to use Case Coffee's Cascadia blend. It's a smooth, bright, and lightly fruity African blend that's perfect on ice. Because we're going to be pouring this over ice, I want to make sure it's very concentrated so that I can control how diluted the end beverage is. I'll be pulling this shot at a 1-to-1 ratio with a 20-gram dose of coffee, so I want a yield of about 20 grams of liquid espresso. I like this blend best when it's pulled around 28 seconds. Now that we have our shot, we'll just pour it over ice into our glass. I also recommend freezing the glass to offset some of the heat from the espresso and prevent things from diluting too much. If you prefer an iced Americano, simply add a bit more water and more ice. It's good to keep things concentrated, but I also highly encourage trying different brew ratios, as iced espresso can bring out entirely new flavors from your coffee. Now let's make some cold brew. Massively popular and wonderfully low maintenance, cold brew is an excellent way to ensure you have plenty of iced coffee by making large batches of concentrate. Our favorite way to make cold brew at Clive is using Hario's filter-in bottle. Not only are they a great standalone solution for making cold brew, but they also serve as the perfect vessel for storage and serving. For our recipe, we use 60 grams of coffee and 700 milliliters of water. First, we'll need to grind our coffee. We'll want a relatively coarse grind, similar to what you'd use for French press. Not only will this work well for a long brew time, but it will also help us avoid getting lots of sediment. Pour those grounds into the basket, lock it into the lid, and then fill it up with 700 milliliters of water, or to this handy marker on the glass. We'll let this steep for 20 hours and then simply remove the basket, at which point we'll have a fresh bottle of cold brew. This stuff is relatively strong, but whether you'd like to keep it concentrated or dilute it with some water is a matter of taste. Personally, I find that once it's poured over ice, it's just right. Last, let's make an AeroPress iced coffee. If you're dying for an iced coffee but don't have an espresso machine on hand, nothing beats the speed and flavor of an AeroPress iced coffee. Since we'll be brewing this hot, we'll pour it over ice. To account for that, we'll use half the normal amount of water and replace that with an equal weight of ice, though extra ice never hurts. That way the coffee we get will be cold and strong. For this recipe, I'll be using 24 grams of coffee ground medium fine, 180 milliliters of water, and 180 grams of ice. I'm also using Fellows Prismo attachment, which will make this much easier. You'll start by attaching the Prismo to the AeroPress. The included metal filter works fine, but I like to throw in a paper filter for a cleaner cup. Now we'll add our 24-gram dose of coffee and set the AeroPress on top of our glass full of ice. Once our water is up to about 200 degrees Fahrenheit, we'll begin pouring in half of it and start our timer. At 30 seconds, give the mixture a stir to break the crust and ensure that all the grounds are getting evenly saturated. Then add the rest of the water. I recommend placing the plunger gently on top to keep the temperature inside a bit more stable. At 3.5 to 4 minutes, plunge the AeroPress into your glass. Give your iced coffee a stir to make sure everything's nice and cold, add more ice or cream if you'd like, and enjoy. The AeroPress is super versatile, so try playing with different recipes to find your favorite. If you're excited to give one of these recipes a go, be sure to hit the like button. I'd love to hear about your favorite ways to make iced coffee in the comments below. For more coffee knowledge, tap subscribe, and as always, thanks for watching.